Hi, today we're going to talk more about Photoshop filters especially in respect to type treatment or what they call text effect. I have started a document here that's about 800 pixels by 300 pixels, and let's just double check. Of course, always good to look at this stuff. Let's look at our image size. 150 dpi, 5 1/3 inches, and 266, good enough. I just want something about the right size so I can see what I'm doing, and I increase the DPI, meaning the dots per inch, so that I have a little more control over the fineness of the edges. I'm going to actually take the word chrome and turn it into chrome. I'm going to do a middle of the road job. This is mostly to get you involved in understanding how some of the tutorials you'll be looking up for your actual assignment will be working, and some of the finer points of getting around the Photoshop layers palette and adjustment layers will work. So again, get used to being resourceful and exploratory. So I have the word Chrome here on a regular type layer. What I'm going to do then is just take a moment to think about what does Chrome really look like. It usually has some depth. It's usually a little rounded. So let's get some of that stuff started. Again, bringing in what the things look like in the real world to represent them in Photoshop. I'm going to go to my double click over here on the right hand side of the layers palette, and I'll get my layer styles. All right, so these are actually multiple ways to do this, but I'm going to pick up a style here, which I can add and subtract, and it gives me much more flexibility than permanently changing the text on the word Chrome. Excuse me, the type of treatment on the word Chrome. I'm going to do some bevel and emboss. That sounds pretty straightforward. I'm going to just, as I create this, I'm going to be looking for things that look like Chrome. There's some exacting ways to do this, but for now, I just want you to understand that exploratory nature is going to be part of in your best interest, and it's okay to have happy mistakes too. All right, so I'm going to say let's emboss this, the style here, give this a little more pillowy. I'm going to be taking a look at smooth, sounds good for Chrome. The size be 5 and 0 here. We'll get down here for some of the type streamers. I'm going to change the contour, this to be over to here. Some of this you play with, and what's great about this new layer style, because this was not always in Photoshop, it's only been around maybe the past few years, is that it's really flexible and gives you much more control, and you can see what you're doing up front. I'm going to click on the contour here. I want to actually change this also to the rolling slope, descending slope. I want to anti-alias stuff so it doesn't get jaggedy around the edges. All right, and let's take a look at this here. Make sure everything is about right. All right, and I'm going to pop over. This is not round enough for me, so let's see if we take like an inner glow. No, how about we try an inner shadow? I've done this a few times. I've gotten closer, and I have some really neat examples at the end. So for the inner shadow, let's take a look at the distance here, the blending mode here, which is where the black shines through to this. 120 degree for my angle of light. The choke, I'm going to put this way up to see if I can get this to right here. I'm going to change the size of this. Oh, that's way too black. Oh, just go down. Nice round number like 7. Kind of chromy, not the best thing so far, but I'm going to go with it. All right, and here I have a little bit of overlay. Make sure this is back to anti-alias, and I'll say this is okay. All right, nothing to write home about, but looks a little more rounded and flat. What I'm going to do now is, before I do my next step, which is to change the curves in an adjustment layer, I need to separate these pieces and flatten the text layer so that it will work correctly with the curves over top of this. So I'm going to right click over in the blank area here on the FX area, and I'm going to do create layers. This actually renders the effects that are normally very flexible. I can actually go through and turn these off, turn these on. I can go back in and edit them. I want to make sure that they're permanently done in this particular case. I will do create layers, and it makes all these layer sets above this. We'll now turn off the background layer. So I now have only these visible pieces from my original parts here for the bevel and emboss. And I'm actually going to click on this here and say merge visible. You can do this from other parts of the palette, but this is the easiest way to do it here. Merge visible, which means it's going to flatten every single thing. So this is no longer editable text. I can't edit the effects, so I pretty much have that. From here, I'd like to change the way that the light hits on the tonal qualities on here. We'll go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Curves. All right. This is also great because this is flexible in the future too for future editing. For the curves here, I really pretty much want to make a giant series of up and down big crazy pieces here. Let's get something that looks a little shiny. Pull this down here, closer to chrome. And again, you can play with this to your heart's content. That'll be it. All right. So what's good is if I change my mind, I get working on a bigger document, I can come back in here, I can double click on the adjustment layer, which is right here. You go back in and change things if they're not working. Again, I haven't done anything permanently. Think about non-destructive editing again as from previous examples. We'll get rid of the properties tab here. The other way to have done this, let's turn this off, would be to go on highlight and select and make active my actual original text. And if I went to image adjustments, curves, the same thing is here. But once I do this, it's permanent. I'm actually permanently editing the pixels and I have no way to do this or undo this, excuse me. I'll say okay to that. Now if I wanted to change this, if I went a few steps ahead and back, it's pretty much impossible to do it. So let's undo our way out of this, put our original piece back on here and say, all right, not bad, but not the greatest thing down the pike. From here, I can say, well, I have a better idea. Let's turn this off. I made an example to show about the flexibility of Photoshop and combining your past learnings with how to work some pieces out. All I did for this was take my original Chrome here, which is not even nearly as good as the other one, and go up in here, and I took a picture of a cloud. Let me temporarily I can disable my layer mask. This was basically my picture of a cloud here. Got that from one of my storage files. I have the word Chrome underneath of it, and I selected that. And now I can go back in and just say, hey, I want to make that layer mask and use an overlay mode like we had done in previous examples. And I have something that's a little bit closer. Like if you ever ask yourself, where does the blue in Chrome come from? It actually frequently comes from the sky. Chrome is not truly black and white. I mean, if you want, you can make it real bold and industrial. You can make it softer and have yellows in it. Use your artistic and personal judgment. And hopefully that without too much further stress, you can go and look at something that looks closer to this, which is definitely chromier. Looks a little Photoshoppy though. So I could go further into this and say, you know what, this chrome looks better, but my idea for having the sky type of colors involved in this was actually a pretty good idea. Let me see if I can combine the two ideas. And I will then get this. So I get this little blue highlights. If you notice, they look much less like clouds. They just kind of have a nice sky blue there. And from inside here, I can expand my effects file. And I don't really know if I want the drop shadow for my layer. Oops. All right, so you have multiple flexibilities. I want to save this. This is to get you to jump around and just show you quickly that your assignment is very open-ended. I pretty much went out to Photoshop text effects on Google, looked at a couple places. I would definitely look for some things that maybe if they have dates that they're not unbelievably antiquated, you will get some older Photoshop tutorials that you can weed through. I got some great stuff here that was done in 2014. Scroll down past the ads. Snow and ice here, not that great for your assignment. It's kind of interesting looking, but it does not look like snow and ice. I think this chalkboard might be interesting to try out. Retro style. This plastic looks great. Some of these things are pretty straightforward. There's some a little bit older ones here. This is from Hong Kiat. Great website for web design also. There's some really great looking flames here. So a little bit of a retro type stuff there. Watch your typography. You may not have some. This is from Smashing Magazine. I'll scroll down to where the goodies are here. Pick something that's a little bit blatant and shows your burgeoning expertise in Photoshop. Try this stuff out, share it with friends. Remember that part of your assignment is to share a link. Make sure you try the link to make sure that the text is really good. These tutorials are written by people who are trying to increase and help out the Photoshop community, but they're not always the best in explaining what it is step by step to get the exact effect that you may want. So please, before you share the link, go through the tutorial, see if it makes sense and works for you. All right. If for any reason during the course of your being resourceful and exploratory, you forget something, you say, I forget, what the heck does the curves adjustment do? Professor White mentioned something about that. I can just type in Photoshop curves, and then of course my first hit will take me to Adobe, and it can explain to you exactly what this is. Some of this is a bit more technical than what you may need to know, but some of this is extremely helpful in getting you around Photoshop into more of a learn what you need to know, as opposed to just grinding through hours and hours of Photoshop that doesn't really give you the immediate feedback that you might need to finish your assignment, or also to just continue to creating artwork and design, which is a real push for this class. Let's go back to Photoshop. I will then save my document and I can go from there. Thanks again.